I just want to give a big thank you to Jeremy and the people at Something to Say for allowing me to share my story. Now, I know men don't really share, but the more of us that do, the more we're going to end the stigma that surrounds male sexual abuse. So let me get into it and share my story. I'm from Australia, obviously. I was 8 years old when it first started. It was a summertime. I went down to the local swimming pool with my sister. I grew up in a small town just outside of Canberra, which is the capital city of Australia. And it felt like half the town would come to this pool in the summertime. So me and my sister rode our bikes down there, and we've done this 100 times before. We're talking the time when your parents would kick you out of the house and tell you not to come home until the street lights came on. So it was, mid to late 80s. Swimming pool, having the time of my life with my friends. They ended up leaving earlier, and my sister left a few hours earlier also. She left and went home with her friends, and that was fine. I'd ridden my bike home 100 times before alone. So end of the day, I walked in the change rooms to get changed, and there was literally no one at the pool besides myself. Walked in the change rooms, was followed in there by this normal, average, everyday looking man. Sat opposite me. And as I got undressed, he got undressed. I didn't really think anything of it. Ran into the shower, and his big, enormous frame followed me in there, and I wasn't able to escape. There was no way of getting out. And obviously, I'm sure you can guess what happened next. He violently raped me in the shower. And the first words he said to me was that if I tell anyone, he'll kill me and he'll kill my family. So I did not say a word. Next time I saw him was probably about a month later. And I was at the local bus interchange. I was with my friends. It was after school. And this man just walked up to me, put his arm around me, and then walked off. Ever so calmly and in control. He didn't make a scene, make a fuss. And as I was writing my memoir, I got a book deal to write my memoir years later. But when I was writing my memoir, I spoke to my best friend about this, and he said that he thought this man was just my father, a family friend or an uncle or someone just coming to pick me up to take me home, because this predator was in such control. But anyway, this relationship with this man went on for 6 years. Very rough, violent. He knew where to see me. He knew where to find me in this town. And, through his grooming, through his lies and his manipulation, him telling me that this is what I wanted, him telling me that my parents hate me, that no one's going to believe me, that they want me to be with him. He told me that I picked him up at the pool. So think about that. I was 8 years old and I picked up him. He told me how much he loved me and that I loved him, and that my parents don't love me anymore and that they want me to be with him. So through all that grooming, all those lies and manipulation, I fell into a Stockholm Syndrome relationship with this man where I felt love for him. I thought I knew what love was, and I felt love for him, and I wanted to be with him and see him. So I would ride my bike to his house and wait outside for him to get home, whether he was at work or out. And I would hide behind the trees, hide behind the cars across the road, knowing all too well what's going to happen. Then at 13 years old, he abandoned me. He just disappeared out of my life. And for me, going through those lies and the manipulation and where my head was and all those questions to myself, first my family don't want me, but now he doesn't want me. So, the things that were coming up in my head of who am I, what am I, where do I belong, who do I belong with, am I gay, am I straight? He told me how special I was I really that special? Depression, shame, anger, hatred, all of these things started to set in. So for about a year or two, I questioned all of that, and I was just lost in the world. I didn't know where I belonged. The next suburb over from mine was an industrial estate, and within that industrial estate were gay clubs, sex clubs, cruise lounges. So I'd ride my bike to this estate, and I would sneak into these cruise lounges. I would sneak into these sex clubs at 15 years old. I would let these men rape and abuse me again. And then I would turn around and beat them up, bash them, rob them. And that was my fuck you to the world. That was my way of getting my power back. That was my way of feeling alive. But more so, that was my way of punishing myself for who I thought I was and what I thought I deserved. And, those actions went on for about 15 years. So let's fast forward a little bit. Mid-20s, I was doing some modeling, I was doing some acting in Australia, but I'd just been invited to do theatre and to study and become a professional actor in New York. It was my chance to get away from that life in Australia to start again. But, I'm sure as you all know that once you run away from your problems, they eventually catch up with you. And, here I was studying to be an actor and doing theatre and doing independent film. But, instead of landing on Broadway, I landed in with the wrong crowd. And instead of living my dream, I was living my nightmare. It's New York City. You can get what you want, when you want, how you want it. And me falling in with the wrong crowd, not dealing with my issues, not dealing with my past. I started shooting heroin. I started smoking crack. I started selling my body for sex with men and again, getting violent. And that went on for a few years into my early 30s. My early 30s, I had a 32nd birthday. And literally no one showed up. No one showed up for my birthday. And, what would you do? What would you do if no one turned up to your party? Well, what I did was I got ridiculously high and fucked up. I numbed the pain and I acted out. I went to a club or to a gay club. I picked up a man, took him to the bathroom, and I did what I did with him. And then I turned around and beat him up and all of that stuff. But that moment changed everything for me. After I did it, I looked in the mirror, and it wasn't me who was looking back at myself. It was the man who abused me all those years ago. And I looked down at the floor at this guy who I'd beat up. And it wasn't him I was looking at. I was looking at myself, my 8-year-old self, that young kid on the floor. I was turning into that very person who raped and abused me all those years ago. And I realized this was my now or never moment. This is my do or die moment. I needed to do something about it now. I needed to change something now. Otherwise, I was going to end up dead, end up in jail or on the street. So I rang my best friend, who I went to acting school with, and she wanted nothing to do with me. She was done with me. But luckily, she decided to meet me. When we met, she said she was done. She couldn't be my friend anymore. But after 25 years of silent suffering, after 25 years of never ever saying a word, I finally said them. I said I was raped as a kid. I was abused as a child. And, they say the truth will set you free. Well, it certainly does. It does set you free. But it also makes you realize, for me at that moment, just how much work I had to do. And it was a heavy moment. I walked out of that even more depressed and even more scared and even more unsure of who I was or where I belong. But luckily, Sam, my best friend, she helped me find a therapist. And, I didn't just dip my toe into it. I dove all the way in. I did therapy, group therapy, rehab, AA, Narcotics, Sex Anonymous. It was all or never. It was all or nothing, sorry. And I'll go into now the main things that really changed me, that really allowed me to move from shame to reclaiming my life. And the first one was a few months into therapy, into one-on-one. And my therapist asked me, she said, Nathan, if you could go back and speak to your 8-year-old self, what would you tell him? And I ummed and ahed about it, and I didn't know, and I don't know. But luckily my therapist was a She was a bulldog. She was 5 foot nothing. God rest her soul. She's passed away now, but she was a bulldog in that she would never let up on me. She would just keep going. She would not let me out of the fight. And just kept asking, what would you tell yourself? What would you tell yourself? What would you tell yourself? And then it came to me and it just kind of hit me that what I told my 8-year-old self, what I told myself as an adult, and what I would tell all of you out there who are listening is that it wasn't your fault. And when I said those words, years and years and years of guilt, self-sabotage, imposter syndrome started lifting off me. The weight of the world started falling off me and I could see myself a little lighter. I was now able to start to understand my relationship with this man, my relationship with my family, with friends, with lovers. And I was in group therapy. Another time I was in group therapy and this was probably about 6 months into therapy. And there was 5 of us. And our therapist said, okay, for next week, I want you all to bring in something that you're proud of, something that you've achieved, something that brings you joy. Next week comes around. I was last to go. And by about the 3rd person, I just started crying and crying and crying and I couldn't stop. Came to me and therapist like, okay, Nathan, what have you got? What is it that you're proud of, that you've achieved in life, that you're happy about? And I sat there and all I could say was, I have absolutely nothing. There is absolutely nothing I've achieved in my 32 years of existence. Absolutely nothing I've achieved that I can say I'm proud of, that brings me joy, that makes me happy. And it broke me. That was my true rock bottom. But then one of the guys in therapy, and he and I were the youngest, we're about the same age. He was overweight, unkept, bullied his whole life, never brushed his teeth, never used deodorant, so just had no self-worth. He leaned into me and said, Nathan, you are here. This is what you should be proud of. This is what you've achieved. And it made me realize that showing up is what matters most. Taking that first step is what matters most. Another important thing in my recovery was finding forgiveness. Now, let's be honest. I'm a human being. I haven't forgiven this man. I'm not there yet. I may never be. But more importantly, finding forgiveness for myself. Forgiving myself for the hurt I put on to others and the hurt that was put on to me. And in doing that, I was able to find some freedom. I was able to find more understanding. I was able to find compassion and intimacy and love for myself. Because in order for me to find peace in the world, I first needed to forgive myself. And, I know we've got limited time here, so I'll be quick. The third thing that really changed my life and really helped me on that road to recovery was owning my shit, if I can say that, taking radical responsibility, owning who I was, the good, the bad, the ugly. And in taking ownership of who I was, of the bad things that I did, of the things that happened to me, that gave me my true freedom. That gave me my power. That allowed me to move forward, knowing that I could finally see the light at the end of the tunnel. I could finally move forward and hold my head up high and be proud of who I was and who I am. Yes, I regret the things I've done in life, and I've done a lot of bad things and I've hurt a lot of people. But I wouldn't change a thing, because in doing that, in taking that journey, it has allowed me to become the person that I am, understand life, understand men, understand masculinity. And true masculinity is being vulnerable. And vulnerability saved my life. True masculinity is being vulnerable, is being able to cry, is being able to say, there's something wrong with me. We have the saying, it's okay not to be okay. But let's take it that one step further. It's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to say you are not okay. Because if you're just going to sit in that, you're not going to move forward. And I guess the last thing I'll say is that when I'm triggered, when things hit me, I don't throw them away and pretend they don't exist. I see where they hit me on my body. I see how they make me feel mentally, emotionally, physically. I learn from them. I educate myself on these things and I move forward with them. I grow with them. I evolve with them. I become a better person because of them. Because if I just throw them away, they're eventually going to come back around and hit me, whether it's a week, a month, a year, however long. And it's going to build and build and build and build and build until I act out and hurt someone or hurt myself. So the most important thing is just to see where they hit me, see what they do to me, ground myself and breathe through it. And again, just move forward with it. So again, I just want to say a big thank you to Jeremy for allowing me to do this. And yeah, it's tough, but we can all get through it. So thank you so much.